Well, I think truth lies in the paradox. We always want the truth. We want someone to affirm for us, this is the secret. And many people, I'll say, you know, why, for instance, is Dark Shadows still so popular? And I think if you were able to say, well, the answer to that is, then it wouldn't be so popular. It's paradoxical that life and death, a paradox. You know the poem by Oscar Wilde, The Ballad of Reading Gaol, where the verse goes in, for each man kills the thing he loves, by each let this be heard. Some do it with a bitter look, some with an unkind word. The coward does it with a kiss, the brave man with a sword. It's paradoxical. It's hard to understand exactly what he meant by that. But there is a kind of romantic concept about love, that the greatest loves end in death. I mean, there's something about that idea that grabs us. And marriages that, you know, kind of go along and everybody's fine, that's not a great love. You know, a great soul-searing love ends in death. And that's what the vampire offers. He offers love and death. It's paradoxical. For many people, when you hear the word vampire and you envision the word vampire, you think of a monster with long yellow nails and a pallor of death and huge teeth hanging out over the lip and walking around and growling and basically a monster, a terrifying figure. But Dark Shadows was not only a horror show, it was also a romance. And once again, the paradox between the horror and the romance. Jonathan Frid came up with a really original concept of the vampire. He made him extremely reluctant. He made him guilt-ridden. He developed a kind of self-hatred, a self-contempt when he needed blood to stay alive. And even though he would evolve into the monster and he would be very terrifying, he would then go back to enormous feelings of guilt because he fell very much in love with the Josette. And his needs to love her and make love with her and hold her in his arms, he had to always resist those needs, because once he had her in his arms, the inevitable was that he would bite her and that would kill her. So in order to keep her alive, his love alive, he had to resist her. So constantly there was this resistance to the fact that he was a vampire. And in fact, he went to the doctor on our show, Dr. Hoffman, and said, is there any way that you can cure me? Can you cure me of being a vampire? Even though he was many hundred years old, and even though he was immortal, love made him want to give up his powers and become a human being again. So there was great conflict in his character, and that conflict made him very sympathetic. We became enamored of him. Women became enamored of him. They fell in love with him because he was torn. And it was a wonderful choice that he made, rather than just playing the monster, just playing the creature of death, to play also the man who could fall in love and who loved his beloved to the point where he did not want to destroy her. It's very interesting. We all don't want to, none of us want to die. We all want to live forever. None of us can conceive of our own death. All we really know is that we will, which separates us from the animals, but we can't, can we? I mean, isn't it a thought that kind of, you think about the fact that you're going to die and you go, no, how can that be? I'm so filled with life. How can that be? I'm so intricate. My mind is working on all these levels. The blood is flowing through how can I die? And I think that this gives birth to religion, belief in God, and perhaps rightly so, and also belief in life after death, and a yearning, a great hunger for it, at any cost. I mean, these creatures that we dream up in our imagination pay a great price for their immortality. They walk in the night, they drink blood, they terrify people. They are feared, but they are immortal. And that's the reason that Jonathan Frid made such an interesting choice when he played Barnabas, because he gave us the living man, the man who had human feelings. And at the same time, he gave us the immortal monster, the creature that brought death. He was able to merge both. The blood is what's gone when we die. When the body is drained of blood when the corpse is put in the casket. The skin is there, the muscles are there, the bones are there, but don't they drain the blood? Isn't this the normal thing they do? And one of the things that gave birth to the idea of vampires, things like the plague. Death brings death. You don't come close to death because it will bring death. That's why you don't become near to someone who has a disease, especially in the times before they had penicillin. So the idea of the plague or infectious diseases that would cause death sometimes give birth to the idea there was a vampire in our midst. Because 9 people have died in the last 9 nights. There must be a vampire. We know who it is. Let's go take this person up. It's that person that died. They open the grave and they find amazing things. They find the hair has grown. The fingernails have grown. The blood is still in the body. Ah, this person is going around and drinking blood. This person is going around and killing people. This person is not dead. Well, there are medical explanations for all these things, but before we had these explanations, this was proof that this body in the grave was actually living at night and drinking blood. Now we know that the blood falls into the cavities, and I mean, I'm not a doctor, and unless the blood is drained completely from the body, that it will coagulate. And I think that the sense that what the corpse needs the most to live again is blood. I mean, I'm sort of making this up, but doesn't that make sense to you? That's what he would go for. But it's not just the blood. It's the life force. And in some situations, the vampire would not suck the blood, but would take the youth and leave the victim old, or would take the spirit and leave the person empty of spirit. And there are many superstitions about spirit, and that the vampire does not have a spirit, because when he looks in the mirror, he doesn't have a reflection. So the idea is that when we look in the mirror, we see our spirit. And that's why mirrors are covered when people die, and the house is swept clean, and the windows are opened, so that the spirit can travel from the body safely and get out of there. And it can't hide in the corners where the dust is. And if the spirit is trapped in a mirror, if the spirit is trapped in a bowl of water, then it will rove unhappily, and it will seek to enter a living human being. And this was part of the vampire idea too, is the vampire came back and stole the spirit, or stole the life force, or stole youth from the victim. So it's all connected with blood. Of course the blood is a life force. Of course it is.